Namaskar. Welcome to another episode of Editorial. There are two statements that the Chief Justice of India made. Two statements. And I'm going to talk about those two statements. The first statement he made was investigative journalism is vanishing from this country. First statement, I'm going to talk about it. The second statement that he made was he slammed the government for overuse of ED in petty cases. Two statements. Let's talk about it. Let's get right into the show. The Chief Justice of India, N.V. Ramana. Now, let me tell you first thing before I get into the editorial. N.V. Ramana started his career as a journalist in Inadu. So, he was a journalist first. Okay. So, N.V. Ramana, the Chief Justice of India, he had gone to launch this book called The Blood Sanders, The Great Forest Heist, written by journalist Sudhakar Reddy Udumula. So this was an investigative book. This was about how great Sanders trees were cut. So this was an investigative book, an investigative piece, which the book was being launched by the Chief Justice. So during the launch of the book, the Chief Justice made a couple of statements, which is what we are going to analyze today. The first statement he made is, in the past, we had witnessed newspaper reports on scandals and misconduct creating waves. He said, leading to serious consequences. Barring one or two, I don't recall any stories of any such magnitudes in the recent years. Everything in our garden appears to be rosy. I leave it to you to arrive at your own conclusion. He says, Baba, you know what? Everything looks good. जो भी देखता है, you switch on the TV, then everything is nice. Prime Minister did this and Prime Minister did that, and our country is there, the whole world, we dominate, and the whole world looks up to us, and all of that is what you see. This is what he says. There is no investigative journalism. Actually, is he saying the truth? Yeah, actually, yes. Fact, there is no much of investigative journalism. But I will tell you why there is no much of investigative journalism. But let us first complete whatever he says. Okay. Then he went on to say that as a person whose first job was that of a journalist, I spoke about that, I am taking the liberty to share a few thoughts on present day media. The concept of investigative journalism is unfortunately vanishing from the media canvas. It is true, at least in the Indian context. When we were growing up, we eagerly looked forward to newspaper exposing big scandals, and the newspapers then never disappointed us. So he almost said the same thing. He says, listen, when we were young, when he was young, and when I was young, yes, it's a fact that when one opened the newspaper, you could always look forward for juicy scandals, and there would be. A lot of things were uncovered by journalists in this country. A lot of fabulous investigation happened in this country because of good journalism. So yes, what he's saying is absolutely correct. And he says this is especially applying to Indian context. Now let us understand, in India today there are two kinds of media. One are the big media. One is a big media house which has got a lot of money. Media house which has got a lot of power, which has got a lot of people, which has got a lot of resources with them. And the second is media house, like us, chota media, small people, chota resources, few people, and doing our work. So two kinds of media. The first kind of media, which is huge media houses, they require large amount of money to run their business, because finally they employ hundreds of people, in fact 500-600 people is employed by each of these media houses. So they require large amount of money, their equipments, their cars, vehicles, the kind of offices they require, huge. So huge capital required. Now to get this huge capital, where do they depend on? They depend on government advertising. Now the government, once upon a time, would give advertising based on your circulation, which is for newspapers, based on your TRP, that is for television media, and for digital, which is now, so we never got the fair end ever, but all the same, a digital media is looked at based on their viewership. So this is how a media was earlier on evaluated. And based on that evaluation, The media planner sitting in the government, in the DGIPR, that is the PR divisions of the government, they would then decide to give different publication advertising. And that is how publication got advertising from the government and they survived. Of course, they also got it from private players. But government always played a very, very important role for media. Now, the thing is that the entire narrative has changed. The entire circumstances has changed. Why? Because now the government only gives advertising if you write good things about them. If you write bad things about them, the government does not give you advertising. The government will ask you to take a hike. So, if a media has to survive, the big media houses have to survive, they have to look at the government and they say, Baba, theek hai yaar, you want us to write good, so we'll write good. So we will say, oh, great policy, the people are happy, the people are dancing, the economy is amazing, everybody is so rich, they are so rich that they don't know where to put the money. All this the media will say, look at the shopping center, oh my God, there is no place to stand in the shopping center. All this you will find. They have to say that. If they don't, their advertising budget is gone. If their advertising budget is gone, they have no money to pay their vendors, they have no money to pay salary, they have no money to pay taxes, nothing. Now let us look at the other side. People like us, chota people. Our expenses are not very much. Chota expenses. Okay, we depend on YouTube or we depend on Facebook or we depend on you, most importantly, you, to ensure that we run. कोई advertising देता नहीं है. Because who would want to give advertising to a channel that may not be necessarily speaking very high things about the government, that may not be necessarily in the good books of the government. Therefore, which brand would want to give you advertising? That is the risk people like us, your channel takes. And we take it we are fully conscious that this is what we are going to get into. We are fully conscious. So we don't get money. We find it very difficult to get both ends met. Before I get back into our story, this is not just about Bharatiya Janata Party. Mamata Banerjee had in a press meeting, in a press conference, had said that, listen, you write good things about us. You write good things about my government and I will give you ads. You don't write good things about us, I am not going to give you ads. So this has now become a trend. Now for people like us, coming back to where I left you, people like us, we still do. We still go out there. And try to tell you the truth. If you go out there and when we try to tell you the truth, you know what happens to us? There are cases against us. Cases against us in Tripura, cases against us in Himachal Pradesh, cases against us. How do we fight again with our limited resources? How do we fight these cases? Where do we afford expensive lawyers? How do I safeguard my people? These brave journalists who doesn't get much of salary, but yet they risk and go and do investigative journalism and try and write the truth. Where do I protect them? How do we protect them? And that's why, especially in India, like the Chief Justice of India said, especially in our country, investigative journalism is dying and it will continue to die. And one day it will come to a stage, if this continues, one day it will come to a stage where there will be none of us. We won't exist. We won't exist because we will perish. We will perish. 10 more cases, we will perish. We will perish. And then you will only have media, when you switch it on, it will say, oh my God, the economy is going fabulously well. Oh, the administration is absolutely clean. Corruption, what is that? All that you will get to hear. All that you will get to hear. This is just the beginning. Let's get into our topic number 2. Now, the second statement that the Honorable Chief Justice of India made was, you are diluting the act. He was talking about PMLA, that is Prevention of Money Laundering Act, PMLA, which is normally used by the Enforcement Directorate. He said, you are diluting the act. If you start using it as a weapon against 10,000 rupees case and 100 rupees case, what will happen? You cannot put all the people behind bars. You have to use it sparingly. The court was addressing the Solicitor General Mr. S.V. Raju for the government. The court told the government, yeah, you can't put PMLA case 10 rupees mein, 1000 rupees mein, 10,000 rupees. How can you put, the Prevention of Money Laundering Act? How can you put that? Now, it's very ironical. When we were young, and when one spoke about politics, the first thing they said is, okay, the first thing politics is, rallies start. So, I stayed in a small place, in a small city called Thane, very close to Mumbai. It's around 30 kilometers from Mumbai. And in our small city, Thane is a beautiful city. Our small city, the festive of democracy would start. You would have had rallies. I remember L.K. Advani had come to Thane. Bala Saheb Thackeray used to come to Thane. Rajiv Gandhi had come to Thane. So, you used to have these leaders coming to Thane and we'd all go and, listen to them. So, this was part of politics. Then we had these jeeps, with loudspeaker going around and, campaigning for the political party. And, there were these slogans and all of that would happen. So that was the festive of democracy. That is how we believed. That is how we saw. That those were the standard processes that you saw before an election. And then you had the voting day and then we would all go to vote and, and a party would win and there would be firecrackers and all of that, celebration and all of that. Achha, now things are slightly different. The election is the dates come, as the dates come closer, the first thing that happens is ED raid, IT raid, CBI raid. This is the first thing that happens. So it has become a standard operating procedure in our election. Raids. So, the opposition party, where is the opposition? Normally, people who are against Bharatiya Janata Party, in this case, purely Bharatiya Janata Party, because it is all controlled by the center. The people, like in Maharashtra, we saw it. Hassan Mushrif was raided. Sharad Pawar was supposedly called for some investigation in ED. Sharad Pawar, of course, turned the table. He is Sharad Pawar. So, the point is, now it has become a standard operating procedure. That is what we are seeing in Uttar Pradesh too. Achha, theek hai. Now the question you may ask is, so if they are money laundering, shouldn't they be arrested? Of course they should be raided. But the question is, why are politicians raided just before the elections? All the sins they do just before the elections. Baki 5 years, nothing happens. They are all cool. Isn't it surprising? So, what the Honorable Judge says is correct. There is no debate about it. But the fact remains that somewhere down the line, what he also needs to understand is ED now or CBI now or IT now has become a package. It has become a standard operating procedure to the election fanfare or election, like you have campaigns, like you have rallies, like you have ED raids, campaigns, rallies, IT raids, again campaigns against rally. So it has become a part of the standard operating procedure. Achha, now is it only about PMLA? I would say that Honorable Judge should also look at things like UAPA. You talk against the government, you are under UAPA. You say something against the government, sedition case. You are a journalist or you are an activist or whatever you are. You say anything against the government, what the government doesn't like or which is against the government narratives. The government says now this the screen behind you is green. I have to say it is green. If I say no, it is blue. You say what? PMLA. Finished. So what are we talking about here? So laws are no longer used because more or less, by the looks of it, they are used because there is a reason why they want you in that law, and that is why these laws still exist. These laws still happen. Sedation is still being used. Nobody is willing to even repeal sedition law. Nobody is willing to do that. So that's the point. My 2 bits. Like I said, our website has been reconstructed. It is now brand new. We've made it new. Now it's perfectly functional because we had a lot of problems, like I told you before, a lot of problems with our website in the last 3 months. Now it has been reconstructed. It is ready, and I would urge you to go in to www.hwnews.in, log into our website, check our website, give me your feedbacks, let me know how you like the experience of our new website, let me know whether you faced any problem with our website, and please do log into our website. Also, don't forget to subscribe us. Like I told you before, the only way we survive is thanks to you, and that's precisely why we say what we think is right. We normally do not get bogged down or pressurized to any forces. So the fact remains that strength is your strength. You are our strength. So please do subscribe to us, and have a great weekend. Till I see you next time. Namaskar.